Welcome back to Tightwad Workshop. A few months ago, Mrs. Tightwad bought these two giant pots and a couple of wisteria trees to plant in them. So today we'll be making a trellis for them to climb on. I'll start by moving the pots out of the way. These pots were a whole lot easier to move around before we put the soil in them. There we go, smooth and graceful. Next, I'll check that the stairs are square with the deck. Then I'll use this board as a template to mark the locations for the trellis's feet. Once I've marked the first one, I can turn the board around and use it to mark the second location as well. I'll be making the feet from these steel discs. We'll start by marking the location of the holes on the slate tiles. Then I'll drill a 10mm hole with this hammer drill. Try not to sweep too much of that dust back into the hole when you do this. Now we can put the disc in place and fit our first sleeve anchor bolt to hold it there. These bolts work by pulling this tapered part into the sleeve. That then forces the sleeve outward against the sides of the hole. For this to work, you do need to use the right size of sleeve anchor bolt for the hole. If the hole's too big, it just won't work. Screw the nut back on until it's flush with the top of the bolt, then tap the bolt into the hole with your hammer. Now we can tighten the bolt until it holds our steel plate firmly against the ground. I probably shouldn't have left the camera set to autofocus for this part. I'll fit the second bolt in the same way. I'll be making the trellis from these galvanised steel tubes. Their zinc plating protects the steel tube from rust, but it does make the welding more difficult. So I'll dip the tube ends into this hydrochloric acid to remove the zinc from the tips. Once the acid's finished reacting with the zinc, I'll swirl the tube in this bucket of clean water to remove any residue. The camera autofocus didn't work very well here either, but you can see how the zinc plating's been removed. Now we can space the front posts the right distance apart and clamp them in place with some temporary braces. We need to use 2 braces, otherwise the legs will just twist out of our preferred square shape. This job is easier if you have an assistant, but if you lay out your parts and clamps where you're going to need them, it's very simple to do it by yourself. Once you have the first back leg in place, the structure will support itself while you fit that last leg. As you can see, I didn't quite get the spacing right, and this leg needs to move across a little bit. That's easily fixed by loosening the clamps and moving the post. Once all 4 of our posts are resting on their feet, we can use a pair of magnetic spirit levels and adjust those posts until they're all nice and vertical. Once we're happy with the posts, we can weld them to the foot plates. The day was starting to warm up a bit when I got to this point. Our next step is to attach our horizontal rails to the posts with more clamps. Then we can use one of our spirit levels to adjust that rail until it's nicely horizontal. I want the second rail to be the same height as the first one, so I'll use this longer spirit level to make that adjustment. Just to be sure, I double check the other end of the rail as well. Now we can mark out the heights we want our posts to be, then cut them off with an angle grinder. The paving under this trellis slopes away in 2 directions, and as you can see from the offcuts, all my posts ended up being different lengths. Once we've cut our posts to length, we can put the rails back on top and tack weld them into position. Make sure that you tack weld both ends of the rail first, then seam weld it on both sides of each joint. I'm also adding these struts to the joints, partly to make the trellis less wobbly and partly to make it look a bit prettier. Now we can remove the long pair of temporary braces from the trellis, cut 4 short cross rails, then weld them into place. So now we just need to tidy away our tools, put some zinc paint onto our welds before the rust takes hold, and move the pots back into position. I think that should look really nice in a few months. That's all for now. Thanks for watching.